Good afternoon, RhinoCats. It is Miss Mary Louise here. Happy Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed your 3-day weekend. We are back talking about reading comprehension, or making sure that we understand what we are reading. So today I really want to talk about strategies we can use as a reader to make sure that we are making meaning from our text, to make sure that we are actively reading. So when we're actively reading, we are engaged in reading. We are making sure we are reading each and every single word. We're not just skimming through the pages, but we're paying attention to what we're reading. We're looking at the pictures. We are getting clues from what we are reading in order to answer those questions that we may get after we read, that we may get from our teacher, that we may get on a quiz or on a test, or that we may need to write some sort of essay, response, or answer to in the future. So it's really important that we are using strategies to help us make meaning, to make sure we are thinking the whole time we are reading. So the first thing that we are going to do, the first strategy I'm going to give you to be an active reader and to make meaning from your text is to make sure you are always asking questions. You can ask questions, and I encourage you to ask questions from the moment you pick up a book. For example, if we are reading Where the Wild Things Are Together, we would immediately look at the cover and the title and start asking ourselves questions about the book before we even open it up. Because the cover of our book can give us so many clues as to what our book is going to be about, and it can already get us thinking and asking questions, and making and retaining more meaning from our stories. So we want to look at the title, Where the Wild Things Are. That's already going to tell me about possible characters and a possible setting, or when and where my story is taking place. Also, they've got this beautiful illustration of this creature on the front in this magical land. That's already giving me clues about this story, and it's letting me know that this book is going to be fictional, right? It's going to be fake. It's going to be about imaginary creatures. It's going to be not real. The next thing, or next strategy I want to give you guys for being an active reader, is to visualize while you read. When you visualize, you are just creating mental images or pictures in your brain about what you are reading. And the awesome thing about Where the Wild Things Are, and about a lot of the books that we read in general, is they have great pictures. So for example, Where the Wild Things Are have these beautiful big pages just dedicated to pictures, or representations of our story through illustration. So pictures can tell you so much about the characters, about the setting, about the plot, about the problem in our story, right? They can really help bring the story to life and help us remember it. So even if you're reading a story like a chapter book that doesn't have pictures, it's always, I always recommend that you start thinking about what those characters, what the places in the book or in the story might look like in your mind, to help you really remember what you're reading and make meaning from your story. The next strategy I have for you guys is to make connections while you read. So if you make a connection to the story, you're just using your experiences or taking what you know to better understand the text. So for example, on this page here, we have Max, who has been sent to his room. He was being a little too silly, a little too wild in the house, and his mom sent him to his room without supper. And we can already see by the picture that he looks very frustrated and angry that he may be sent to his room. And this is something that I can relate to. This is something I can make a connection to, because as a child, I was sent to my room a lot. I could definitely be a little wild and get in trouble and have to go to my room sometimes without eating. So I can make a connection to our character in this book, and I can recognize that I have been there. So I know what that's like. I can already start thinking from the character's perspective and maybe making guesses about how he feels, what he's going to do next, that sort of thing. So really helpful to put yourself in the character's shoes, make those connections to your own life. Another strategy I have is, and this kind of goes with making connections as well, is to infer, to make inferences. When you infer, you're just making an educated guess. So you can take guesses about or use clues from the story and what you know to kind of make sense of what's going on, to guess what's going on in the story, maybe if it's not explicitly stated for you. So, for example, if we take a look at this page where we see Max and his room is starting to grow into the forest, right? I can make an inference or guess, even though it doesn't tell me that, Max is using his imagination to go to this wild place to escape how he's feeling. The text doesn't tell me that, right? But I can make that guess based on my experiences, based on what's happening in the story, based on this picture right here of Max looking delighted as his room turns into something different, a new magical place where he can escape. So I am making guesses, I'm making inferences that that's what's happening in the story because of what I know. Another great strategy is to make predictions while you read. And we are continuously encouraging you guys to make predictions while you read at school. When Miss Chrissy's reading James and the Giant Peach, we're always asking you guys, what do you think is going to happen next? So when we make predictions, we're using clues to infer or to guess what happened based on what I know now. So, for example, if we're reading Where the Wild Things Are, and we've come to this point in time, or this scene in the book, where Max is kind of sitting off to the side. He's been playing a lot with the wild things, but he's started to become tired. He's started to become annoyed with the creatures, kind of not following his rules. And I'm making a prediction that he is going to leave this imaginary land, this wild place, to go back home. He's starting to say that he's lonely and he wants to be where someone loves him best of all. And I am going to use what I know, the clues from the book, to guess that Max is going to go back home, at least in his mind, and try to be back with his mom and make things right. So that's what I predict based on what I've read so far. And then when you summarize, which is my next strategy, you just retell the story or a page you've read or important details in your own words. So it's really important that we know how to put the story in our own words. I ask you guys all the time when we finish our check-in after we have read in the morning, tell me in your own words what happened in this story. It's important that without going back and looking at the story, that you're just able to talk to me a little bit about what you've read. You're able to point out the characters. You're able to talk to me about the setting. You're able to talk to me about the problems and the solution. So if I was to summarize Where the Wild Things Are, I wouldn't necessarily need to start with, well, it was a dark night and Max was wearing pajamas. And this is how his room looked. I don't need to go into that much detail, but I would give a few details that were important to the story, right? So you could maybe say Max was a child, a small boy who was feeling very silly one night, was spreading a lot of chaos around the house by running around. His mom sent him to his room without dinner. He was frustrated and escaped to a magical land where wild, big creatures lived. They made him king of the wild things. and he played with them. They had a lot of fun times, but he became bored. He became frustrated, much like his mom became frustrated with him running around the house, and he missed his mom. He wanted food. He wanted to return to his normal life. And so he went back home. So that was a quick summary, right? It didn't take me too long, but I was able to tell you about the characters, about where the story took place, and about the beginning, middle, and end. All right, guys, I hope this helps you out in reading in the future and making meaning from your text. Remember to ask questions while you're reading, visualize or make those mental images of what you're reading, make those connections, think about how the story relates to your life, make inferences or guesses on what's happening in the story based on what you know, make predictions or guess what may happen next based on what you know, and be able to summarize or practice summarizing or retelling the story in your own words. All right, guys, your assignment today is going to be to log into epic.com. I hope you guys have all logged in and already started checking it out, our Read Aloud website. And I'm going to let you guys go ahead and select any book that you would like on your level to go ahead and read and practice active reading on. So I won't assign you guys a book until later in the week. Right now, it's just your choice. So go ahead, log into epic.com and practice being an active reader using these strategies on a book of your choice.